Welcome back to the shop, guys. In this video I will be replacing the steering stem bearings on this YZ125. They're getting a little bit gritty feeling. This is going to be pretty much the same steps on any of your motocross bikes, Japanese or even the KTM. For the most part, it's all the same stuff. Doesn't matter if you have a CRF 450 or a RM125, it's pretty much the same stuff. And I'm going to show you two or three different ways of doing this depending on what tools you have. I have a press back there, but not everyone has a press. I'm going to show you how to do this without a press, with a press, with a blind bearing puller, without one. I'll show you all the different ways. No matter what set of tools you have at the house, with a little bit of creativity, you will be able to get through this. The parts that I will be using is just a Tusk steering bearing kit. It's significantly cheaper than the OEM steering bearings for this bike. And these are just steering stem bearings for the most part, so I'm not too concerned about it as long as the bearings are good, nice and smooth. So alright, let me go ahead and open up the kit here. We have some seals and the two bearings. Now, there is an upper and there is a lower bearing. And what I want to do is I want to take the outer race for the bearing and go ahead and put it in the freezer so that it, when you freeze stuff, metal, it becomes smaller. So that's going to allow us to tap this into the frame easier. So while I'm making this video, I can have these in the freezer getting chilled. But I don't want to mix up the top one from the bottom one. They look about the same, the bearings. So I have to know which race is for which. So what I'll do is I'll figure out which one is the top. The top one is going to have a smaller inner diameter. This one's at 30 millimeters. So that's my top right there. This one's at, let's say, 28 millimeters. Double check. Yep. So yeah, about 30 millimeters there. So this is my top right here, the smaller one. So what I'll do is I will take a permanent marker and I will put a T on it right here for top. And this is the bottom. You got to wipe it off to get the marker on there. Put a B, bottom. And I'll just set them right here in my freezer. Close the door and let it get nice and chilled as I work on the other stuff. So first things first, I need to get the front wheel off of there and the forks. I'm going to take the brake caliper off the fork there and take the front wheel off, and then we'll get the forks off. So let me do that. I use a lot of Loctite on them. These are titanium. They're pretty cool. Set that there. Go ahead and loosen up the pinch bolts here. This bike only has about 56 hours on it. I bought it with 9 hours on it, and when I was, if you watch the video where I was putting the bike all together, like running through everything, I kind of noticed that the steering bearings got some water in them. I cleaned them up and greased them, and that bought me some time, but eventually caught me. And that was from the previous owner, probably using a pressure washer. You know what? I should have left this tight first. My bad. I'll just tighten one up. But yeah, he's probably using a pressure washer and got water in there. And yeah. It made it, I greased it and cleaned it, and it made it to 56 hours, and now it's giving me a fits again. So we'll put some new bearings in it, and after that, it will last me the life of the bike, because I don't use a pressure washer to wash my bikes. If you watch my video on washing a bike, you'll see why I don't use it. It just makes your bearings go bad. What I use right here is just an extension. I just set it in here lightly, little love taps. There it is. And the front wheel is out of there. And honestly, you don't need to use a pressure washer to get your bike clean. Look in there. You won't find much grit or dirt anywhere on this motor or this bike. But again, if you're interested in getting your bike that clean and without damaging your bearings and stuff, without using a pressure washer, check my video on how to wash a dirt bike. Before you pull the forks off, if it's not your bike, like I know this bike, this is my bike, so I know these are set at 8mm, but if it's not your bike, you're doing this job for someone else, just take some time to measure where they had their fork height at, so you can put it back when you're done. See, yeah, pretty much 8mm. That's where it's at. So when I'm done, I can put it right back to where it was. Let me go ahead and take the forks off now. The best way to check these, though, is with a digital caliper. I find it easier. I mean, you can use a tape measure or even something as an index, but calipers are always cool to do that. And time to get the forks off. There's fork number 1. Oops. I almost tried sliding this fork off with this still on there. That would have hung me up. There's two ways, more than one way to skin a cat. You can take it off right here and leave the whole fork guard on, and just take the line clamp off there, or you can just take the fork guard off. I'm going to take the fork guard off and just let all this hang off to the side. There we go. I got the bolt out on the fork guard. I can just set this off to the side. I can leave that one on since there's nothing attached to it. Now I should just be able to slide this on down. Got that fork off. Let me go ahead and loosen up the other side and pull that one off. Alright, the forks are off. So the next thing I'll do is take the front number plate off. Let's get that out of the way. And I almost forgot this. You're going to want to take this bolt out right here, because that's connected to the bottom tripper clamp, and we will be removing that. And might as well go ahead and get the front fender off too. So let me get that front fender off of there. Alright, this is where I'm at now. Now we have to get the handlebars off of there. For most of you guys, you won't have one of these, but if you do, you are in luck. This is a 32mm tool. Comes in a toolkit on some of your street bikes to adjust, I guess, your rear tire or whatever. I've collected this throughout the years. It's really awesome because it allows me to get this upper triple clamp off without actually taking the handlebars off. I can just put that in there. But if you don't have that, which most of you won't, there's more than one way to skin a cat. You can take these bolts off right here and pull the whole handlebars off and just set it back here on the bike, or you can take these down here off and lift up the this whole assembly right here with the bars on it and set it down on the bike. But because I have this tool, I can just take off the whole upper clamp, triple clamp with the bars on it. This tool is real convenient when you're at the track. If you have to tighten up your steering, you can loosen this up, tighten that up there, and then tighten this back down without ever taking your bars off. This is really cool to have. If you have one of them, throw it in your toolbox for when you go to the track. The nut might hit right here like it is done, but all I have to do is just wiggle this up a little bit. There we go. A little more. Alright, collect that washer there. There we go. And now what I will do, let me slide this back to show you, is I'm just going to take this off and just set it real gently off to the side and out of my way. There we go. I'm just going to let all that sit right there so I don't have to take any levers off, any cables, or nothing. Now after you pull the bars off, you set them right there. Check, make sure your bike might have a washer here. The YZs do, but if you're working on another model, just make sure you collect that. You don't want to lose it. And then we have this, I don't know what you call this. We're going to take that off. I have this tool right here that will grab and take it off. If you don't have one of these, you can just use a punch and put it in one of the lugs there and use a hammer. Just tap it, loosen it up. They're usually not on. Hear that? Yeah, good bearings. They're usually not on that tight. But this one it seems to be tight. Let me get a punch. This small punch. Hopefully that'll loosen it up. There we go. I didn't think I had it that tight, honestly. Let me see if this tool will grab it now that I have it looser. No, it's still tight. A couple more whacks. Now the tool should be able to get it off of there. Let's see. There we go. Alright, here we are. Make sure you have your hand holding the bottom of this so it don't fall out on the ground when you're taking this nut off right here. Sometimes they fall out. This one will. It's already trying. Okay. Again, check for washers and stuff. This one doesn't have any washers. It just has this seal right here. Now I can slide it on down. Just slide it right out the bottom there. Now let's take a look at this for a second here. Look at that bearing. You can see the grease is turned white up here. That's moisture and water that's gotten in there. And you can see there's like some rust starting to build up in there. And then on the other bearing right in here, you just grab that and pull that one out, and you can see the rust. Like I said, I cleaned them, greased them. They were already rusted though, so it just, maybe the seals are done. It's just letting water get in there, but we got new seals to put in it. Alright, now I'm going to take a moment and just wipe up all this grease up in here and up in there so I have a clean area to work with. Alright, got that cleaned up. I'm going to leave them in for the time being. Normally, I would just knock these out right now and knock the new ones in, but I'm going to leave them in for you guys that don't have a press because I'm going to show you how to do this also if you don't have a press. So, alright, the next step is we have to get this bearing off of the steering stem right here. This is probably the toughest part of the job right here. I'm not going to kid you. Here's how I do it. I first want to get these little ball bearings and stuff out of my way. So what I'm going to do is be careful. You don't want to nick this stem right here. You just don't want to do that. So I think that's good enough. And if you don't have a grinding wheel like that, you can just even use a flat head or a punch and a hammer and work it off after, you know, just beat it up a little bit. Let's see what I can do. There goes one bearing. There it is. See, like I said, it's not too hard. Get that part off. Get this off out of my way. Alright, let me clean up this area a little bit. Okay, now that I have that off of there, I didn't mean to break that lip, but that happens sometimes. What I'm going to do is take that grinding wheel, I'm going to cut a slit in here so that I can use this punch to knock that off. Now we're going to have to apply some heat too, but we'll get there. Let me go ahead and cut the slit now. You want to kind of cut it at an angle to give you something to bite into. And you kind of want to hold it up and figure out where's the best place to cut it. Okay, right about there should be good. It's better to start higher than lower because you can always go lower. Can't go higher. And you don't want to cut all the way through that. Again, you do not want to hit your steering stem. If you nick this steering stem, just buy a whole new lower triple clamp. You don't want to damage it. I mean, you don't want to ride with it like that. All right, let's see. Let's see what I can do here. Make it a little bit wider. That might be good enough. Let me go ahead and get some heat to it. It's going to stink. It's going to burn rubber because it's melting that that rubber seal right there. But we got a new seal, so it is what it is. You want to get it pretty damn hot though. Just giving you an idea about how hot you need to get it. Of course, it's burning rubber. All right, let me get my punch out. See what we can do. We got a fire going. All right. Hopefully she starts coming down already. Not yet. Let me put a little more heat to her. I'm just going to let it sit right there and get that thing nice and toasty. Okay, let's try again. See if she budges. Nope, not yet. Try again. Alright, so 9 times out of 10, that method will actually allow you to slide that race up off of there, and sometimes it just doesn't work out as planned. This is not working out as planned. So, we're going to move to plan B here. But I highly suggest that you try that first, because like I said, 9 times out of 10, you can get them off that way. But this one's just being really stubborn. Instead of it coming off, it just broke a corner of it off there. Now, as you may know, there is a really expensive tool you can buy to pull that off if you wanted to buy that. I don't have that tool, don't plan on buying it. Or you can press this out and then get it off, and I don't want to do that either because they have these set in a certain... I just don't feel like doing all that. So what I'm going to try to do now is with the grinding wheel, I'm going to shave a little more of this material off right up here without trying my best not to touch this or that with the grinding wheel, but just thin it out a little bit. Since that cracked right there, if I can crack it a little bit more, then it'll just slide right off. So let me go ahead and do that. I did mention this is not a fun job, right? This is not one of my favorite jobs. So grind away at it a little bit more, being real careful. You know what, this thing's really hot. Let me go cool it down real quick. Alright, work at it some more. Alright, I cut some grooves in it right here that I can hit it with a punch. So I'm going to continue just beating on it a little bit, and maybe it'll just continue cracking. That's the plan. Let me get the heavier hammer. Hey guys, you know how you know when you're getting close? When you can start spinning this right here. It has moved just a little bit, which tells me we're getting somewhere. What I did is I cut another slit right here, and I just started tapping it down there. So before I try continuing to split this, let me go ahead and put more heat to it and see if I can continue knocking that down like the original plan. Just putting a little more heat to her here. Okay, I think it should be hot enough. Real quick here. Great, broke that piece off too. Dang it! We're getting so close. So close, yet so far away. Huh. Like I said, you have to get a little bit creative. She's starting to come off. See that? That gap? She's definitely starting to come off. But now that she's come off a little bit, you can see it's off just a little bit there. I still have nowhere to really get a good bite, not without like damaging things up. I really don't want to cram a wedge in there and scar everything up too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to thin this area out right here. Do my best not to hit the stem. I mean, I got a couple cosmetic slips right there, but that's not anything structurally damaging. So let me thin that up a little bit more and see if I can just split it. What I've done is I put a big cut diagonally right there. That'll allow me to stick the punch in there and punch it real hard, or hit it real hard, and let's see if I can split it. If I can split this sucker, it'll come right off. Let me see if I can... Nope, she's still on there good. Alright, let me thin it out a little bit more. Alright, damn it. There she goes. She's coming. Didn't split like I wanted to, but she's coming down. This part's where you got to be careful. You don't want to get it up in there and nick the surface. So just take your time. Damn it, it's done. Got it off. Woo! All right. So as you can see, I might have nicked it right here a little bit. That's just cause you won't even see that when it's on the bike. And a couple little mild nicks right there, but I didn't cut into it any. So I'll just take a little bit of sandpaper and smoothen that out right there. See that little bit of stuff right there? Just smoothing it out so the bearing goes on nice and easy. But that's totally fine. I'm okay with that. I trust that. If I would have cut into this, I wouldn't have trusted it. I'm not going to be out there jumping big triples, freaking trying to kick 120-foot triples and stuff on a steering stem that has a slit cut in it. I'm just not going to do it. Yeah, a little bit of sandpaper here. Just smoothing that out just a little bit. Not trying to make it look perfect. I'm just kind of, smoothing out some of the high spots when it's time to put the bearing on. I'm okay with that. Because like I said, you don't want to be out there jumping big jumps with a steering stem that you don't really have faith in. Alrighty, let me clean this up and we'll start the reassembly process. The kit came with 2 of the bottom seals. That's strange. They both got the same part number, so they're both the same. But yeah, whatever the case. You don't want to forget this. If you press that bearing on and you didn't put this on, well, you know what you're going to have to do. You're going to take it back off. Let's see the other one here. See the other inside of this is. Yep. Make sure you put it in the proper direction. Okay, for you guys that do not have a press, here's how I have tackled this in the past without a press. Grab it with a set of pliers, needle nose, or vice grip needle nose or something, but grab it in a fashion like this, at an angle like I have it, so you don't put any pressure on this bearing, because you don't want to bend that cage there. Because we have the flame going again. We're going to heat it up. Let me put it up like this, you can see. Now you don't want to heat this bearing up so hot that it turns blue. You just want to distribute the heat around it and just get it pretty hot and toasty. If you get it hot enough, for the most part, it should fall right onto that steering stem and right into place. I have a press, so I really don't need to do this, although I'm going to do it, just get a little bit of temperature in it to get it down a little bit and get it started. And then I'll show you how to continue getting it on if it doesn't go all the way down with the heat without a press. Now, again, don't forget that little seal on the bottom. You forget that, you'll be having to take the bearing back off, which usually means destroying the bearing. You don't want to do that. And again, you want to move the heat around on the bearing. Don't sit on one spot too long where you turn that spot of the metal blue. Just get it pretty nice and toasty. And let's see how this turns out. Let me go ahead and drop the camera here so you can see when I go to set it on. Let me get some more heat on it since it obviously cooled down just a little bit right there. Well, let's try. Well, that's as far as that one went. But here's what you do at this point. Find the socket that fits right here perfectly, because you want to hit that, not that. And this is why I said save these outer races for the end. You'll set it in here like this. That there. And that's what you're going to do. You're going to sit there and pound it until it falls into place. I started to get it to come down, as you can see, but I'm going to take it to the press and finish it there. But if you don't have a press, you can just sit there and pound it down like that. Obviously, I would, if I knew that I did not have a press and I was going to have to rely on that all the way through, I would have gotten it a little bit hotter and made sure it went down a little bit further. And I would have rushed over here while it's still hot. As soon as I drop it on there, while it's still hot, I would have rushed over here, set it in there, had my socket and everything ready, and just start hitting it in. But I don't have to do that because I have a press. So let's go to the press. Now, even in the press, you have to be careful that you don't damage the bearings in that sleeve. So usually what I do is I reuse the piece that we knocked off, that we broke off here. It's usually in good shape when I get it off. Maybe a tiny little corner broke off, but good enough that I can use that. I flip it upside down like this, and I can use that to press on the bearing without actually damaging that. But since this is so damaged, I mean, it might still work, but I actually found this other little bearing race right here that fits it perfectly, and got it to the job for us. So let's set this thing up. Oh, one more little side note. You'll know when you have the bearing all the way to the bottom, because you won't be able to spin the seal anymore. Even if you're knocking it on the bike like I showed you a minute ago by hitting it right here, you want to hit it a couple times as you're getting close and then check that seal. If you can't spin that seal anymore, then you're all the way down. Don't keep smacking it. Once that seal is tight and doesn't spin, you know you made it all the way. So, I slide that on there. Keep it all situated here. Well, actually I wasn't able to get this a tight enough spot here, so I'm going to have to do some improvising here. And let me slide this back on, and I'm going to add this thing right here. It's a little bit fatter. Let's see how that does. I think that'll work. Okay. Let's do it. Pressing her on down, nice and easy. When I get close, I'll start checking that seal. Right now you can see it can spin in there, but when I get close, it should stop. When I get it tight, it shouldn't be able to spin anymore. I can spin it a little bit. Can't spin anymore. I'll give it a little tug just for good measure. There we go. That should be good. Let's pull it out, take it to the bench, and take a look. Good, and all I'm looking for is that I can't spin that seal, so let me try as hard as I can. Nope, I can't spin it, so that I can assume that bearing is all the way down on the bottom, pressed against the seal. That's what we want. Now I got to knock this sleeve off. Luckily it has a lip on it, and if I would have used the old bearing to do this work, I would have put it on that way, obviously, because the more narrow end will be in here so it doesn't damage the housing, and I would have had this big lip right here to knock it off. Doesn't take much at this point to get them off, because it's only on just a little bit. And there it is. She's good to go. So that is the hardest part of the job right there. All the hard stuff's out of the way. All we got is some of the medium to easy stuff left. So now it's time to get these bad boys out of there so we can put the new ones in. If you don't have a blind wheel bearing puller or some type of puller to pull this out, I'll show you another way you can do it real quick. You can use a punch drift, whatever the hell you want to call this, with a nice flat end. Now you're going to want a nice sharp flat end. You see how this one is like rounded? I've already used this one to knock out a few bearings in the past. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my grinding wheel and sharpen it back up. There you go. I got a nice sharp edge on it right there. You want that because you don't have a lot of meat to grab on this thing. Let me show you. I'll just show you on the top one. Just know the bottom one is the same. But what you'll do is you'll run it all the way through here. And you want to hit There we go. You want to hit the bearing. You see, you don't have a lot of space there to grab onto. It's just a tiny little bit. Be careful. Do not hit on this spot right here. That's your frame. Let me get the light in there. That's your frame. You'll damage your frame. Don't do that. Make sure you're only hitting the inner race or the outer race right there. Like, that's a good place right there. I can hit it, and from there I can hit it down here with the hammer. You'll pop this side up just a little bit. Then you come over here to the other side, and you pop that side up a little bit. After you get this one off, you do the bottom. The bottom's the same thing. Let me get a light up in here and show you. If it'll focus on it, you can see there's not a lot of lip in there. So same thing as the top, it's not a lot of lip. Some bikes have more than others. These aren't too bad, these aluminum frame YZs. I've worked on some of the steel frame bikes that they give you like hardly any lip. You just got to make sure your tool is really sharpened up to catch that light nice a little bit and tap it out. The good news is they're really not in there that hard. So once you get a good bite on it, tap some hammers, you'll start seeing it move right away and just work it out. Or you can have, if you have a blind wheel bearing puller kit or whatever, these work really good at doing it too. You can buy, I think I bought this kit on eBay for like $40. Well worth the money. Let me show you how this works. When I put this in there, I'll twist this and it'll cause these to expand out, and that's gonna go, you know, I put it below the bearing race and it's going to grab it from the bottom side. So let me go ahead and do that. This one's a little tight getting in there. There we go. It barely fits in there. Again, you want to make sure you get only the bearing. Don't be tugging on the frame. Make sure it's only biting on the bearing. Okay, I got that. Now, it does come with this fancy... It does come with this fancy thing right here that you can bolt on the top of here, and you can, like, you know, ratchet it off or wrench it off. But honestly, you don't have to do all that. You can use like a long extension, or I'm just going to use this long bolt right here, slide underneath it here, and just hit the blind puller. Oops, started coming out. Let me tighten it up again. Alright, let's see if I got a better bite on it this time. It's actually started to move. You know what, let me get you in there a little bit closer. Alright, hopefully my camera doesn't fall over. Let's try it again. Well, that's out of there. So as you can see, they're not in there very, very tightly. So, you know, if all you have is a punch with a flat edge like that, I've knocked a million of them out that way. And the same thing for the bottom. Same exact thing. And actually, since I got the top one out, I do have the luxury of just dropping this one through. It doesn't get stuck like it did. There we go. Take that back. I couldn't drop it through, so I'm going to have to work from the bottom. Alright. Because this blind puller, even though it's fully retracted, or whatever you call it, it still fits a little tight in the bearing there, but I got it in. Alright, center down. Again, you want to make sure you get only the lip of the bearing and not the frame. So make sure you're not beating up and tugging on your frame. That should be good. Let me go up top. I'll do the same thing. I'll use this tool and beat it from the top. Oops, didn't have a good enough bite. Let me put it back in there. Alright, let's try it again. I will say she is almost out. I mean, she started moving at least. Alright, try it again. Is she coming? Yeah, she's coming. Feels like it should fall out any minute now. There it is. All right. And we got that one out of there. Just cleaning this area up real good, both top and bottom. And making sure I didn't nick anything, so when the bearing goes in there, it goes in there nice and flush. I want to make sure everything's in good shape. If I nick something and I have to, you know, kind of mend it or bend it or mash it back in place, I will. But usually I don't. And this came out good. She's all cleaned up, and yeah, let me go get the new races, and we'll start knocking them in. Alright, fresh out the freezer. And this is the one with the T on it. You can hardly see, it's all frosty, but I'm going to do this just for that one guy that will comment and say you never hit these with a hammer. I'm going to hit it with a hammer. So that's why I freeze it, because it does help this start off easier. You want to make sure you kind of knock it in as level as you can. So what I do is I just go around and I knock it, like I said, until it's flush with the top of the frame here, and we still have about 2 or 3 more millimeters to take it down. Normally what I'll do is I will take I'll take one of these right here to finish it off and just be real gentle and on the edge and tap it around. But I got this bearing punch kit from Tusk. I never use it, I really don't. But I'm going to try it real quick. Let's just see. Let's see. It works. Well, that's pretty cool. So I guess it wasn't a total waste of money. You want to get it, make sure you get it all the way in there. What I try to do is I try to stick my fingernail down in there and make sure that she's snug up in there, and she is. Let me give her another hit for good measure. Give her a good pounding. That should be it. Alright, let me go get the bottom one now. Alright, and this one says B. It is the bottom. Again, make sure you put these in the right way, by the way. Taper in towards the outside. And I do the same thing for that one guy out there that always has to have the special tool. By the way, I have never damaged one of these by using a hammer. That is such hard metal. We're hitting the edge the bearing never rides on anyway. So, alright, let me look in there, make sure everything looks good. Yes, it does. Okay, I got it flush with the frame. Now I'm going to try. Again, in the past, normally what I do is I'll take this right here and I'll finish it up with this. Or you have another option, which I will show you. The other option is using one of your old bearings. Set it in there, set a socket on it, and you can use that and hit that. Now, I've done this a million times. There's going to be someone that says you don't do that because it can damage this. I have noticed that it makes visual marks when I've done this in the past, but it doesn't seem to affect anything. When I tighten the steering, it's nice and smooth. So keep that in mind. Although my preferred method usually It's just to take my time with something like this and make sure it's getting sharp and work around. But since I got that tusk bearing insert whatever tool here, let me try that again. Let's see. That's working. Good. You know, I kind of like that. I think that was worth its money. I think I paid like 25 bucks or 20 bucks. That's looking like it's in there. Okay, I got the bearing on the shaft all greased up, got the upper bearing all greased up, and I put some grease on the two races in there, so let's slide her together. What did I do with the seal? Oh, I left the seal all the way over there. Let me grab that. Almost forgot the seal. Now make sure you get the seal up in the groove good, like the lip. Make sure it doesn't fold over. There we go. I'm just going to put it finger tight to start with. All right. Feeling nice and smooth? Yep, nice and smooth. A little bit of friction, that's the way it should be, but nice and smooth. Yep. I'll leave her there for now. I'll pull these gloves off because my hands are really greasy. Alright, now I got to put this washer on. And set the steering back on. Put this stuff back on here. I get OCD with things. I'll put it that way. Gotta lift it back up a little bit, get the nut on. And of course, I'll save the full tightening for once I get the forks on the bike. I'll just get a little bit snug for now. That's all it needs to be for now. Where's my fancy tool? Here it is. Alright. Got the steering on. Let me go ahead and slide the forks in now. Sometimes these forks can be a little tough to slide up in there. You can take a flat head. There you go. Loosen it up a little bit. Make sure this is lined up. Yeah. There we go. And pop the other one in. Alright, the forks are in place. Before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and set the fork heights back to 8 millimeters. Alright, I have this one set exactly at 8 millimeters. So what I'll do now is only tighten just the top triple clamp bolt, because we still have to make sure that the upper triple clamp and lower triple clamp are aligned, and that's done once everything's all cinched in. So I'm only tightening up the top for now just to hold the fork height, but that still allows a little wiggle between the two triple clamps until I get the other fork where I want it. I'll go do the same thing to the other fork and I'll be back. Okay, I have both the fork heights set at 8 millimeters. What I'll do now is I'll loosen this back up. right? I want it loose so it can wiggle. I'm just going to bounce it on the stops a few times like this. What that's going to do is allow the forks to, imagine the forks are going straight down like this, allow them to kind of find the center point, because they're going to try to force the center point because of the triple clamps they're in. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It will be perfect, but it doesn't have to be, because honestly, if you set your bike up right the first time you jump the jump and land good and you actually bottom the forks out, they self-straighten themselves up when they bottom out. As long as you have your triple clamps torqued properly, which is the top, you know, pretty tight, but the bottom a little bit looser. I know Yamaha has specs that are equal, but you just don't want to have the bottom too tight. Anyway, let's move forward. Now we'll tighten up the steering and stuff. Yeah, see, Yamaha uses the same, as far as I remember, they use the same torque specs top and bottom. But the old school trick was, and this is something the KTM still uses, is having, they'll suggest like a lower torque spec for the bottom than they do the top. And there's good reasons. If you put it too tight, it starts squeezing on this tube and it can wear out your bushings on the inside of the fork tube as it goes up and down. Plus, you want a little bit of give so your front end can self-straighten itself out if it ever gets twisted. Let's say you go down in a corner. But anyway, I'm tightening this up. I'm just going to use a punch since that tool of mine is not working so hot. You want to tighten it up until you get a little bit of friction. Now, everyone likes their steering a little bit different. I do like kind of a slightly stiff steering. It makes the bike feel more stable. In my opinion, it's not because it's a poor man's steering stabilizer because of the friction. In my opinion, it's because if you do have friction, it assures that the front end is tight. The bearings are tight. If you set your front end up where there's no friction, well, you might not feel it on the bike, but when you're riding, there could be a little bit, if there's no friction, there could be a little bit of play. And that little bit of play is greatly amplified all the way at your front wheel. And that's what causes the instability. I know that from the street bike world, the sport bike world. You want them where there's a little bit of friction, and that guarantees. Now, so I got a little bit of friction now. Now what's going to happen is when I tighten this top one up, it's going to add even more friction. So I'm going to make sure I didn't go too far. So let me tighten this up as I would normally. And when you tighten this up, you want the steering stop to hold the fork. You don't want to hold it like this and tighten it up, because that could actually twist your fork alignment. So let the steering stop do the work. That's pretty damn stiff right there. You know, I think I'm going to back it down just a little bit. So let me loosen it up. Yeah, it's a little too stiff. Again, let the steering stop do the work for you. I'm holding it in place. You have to loosen this up first before you can loosen or tighten the bottom one. So let me go ahead and loosen the bottom one up just a hair. I don't want to go crazy with it, just a hair. Let's try that. Alright, try tightening the top back down. Still a little bit too much for my taste. Let me do it again. Alright, I just loosened the top one up. You can see there's like less friction now that that's loose, because when you tighten this up, it actually does push this one down a little bit tighter. That's why I have to loosen that one up. Take it a little bit looser. Alright, tighten it back up, and now let's see. I hope this does a trick, because I don't want to keep doing this. Let's see. That feels good to me. A little bit of friction, just the way I like it. Yeah, I like that. Alright. Okay, now I'll go ahead and finish tightening up the triple clamp bolt to hold the fork on. Alright, got the front number plate on and the front fender. Now let me just go ahead and put the fork guard back on. And I got the rotor on and the front wheel in place, although I still have to tighten it up. Now this is a step that you want to follow pretty closely. In the old days, they used to tell you to leave your bottom leave your bottom fork axle pinch bolts here loose and compress the front end to align your front end, as they call it. And that used to work back then, but let me show you what I mean. While these are loose, you want to get this tight first. Sometimes you have to tighten up back here real quick because the whole axle will spin, which I'll do that right now. Just to make sure I get it good and tight. There we go. Alright, now let's go to the other side. I'll show you what I mean. With the axle nut over here on this side fully tight, yet, let me loosen these back up, yet all the pinch bolts are loose. This side is positioned, it's locked in between that spacer and the nut. It cannot move. The fork cannot slide left or right any. However, on this side, it can. See that little bit of wiggle? Now what happens is some people just throw their front wheel on, tighten it up, and go. But if this is pressed in like that, as your front end compresses, as the forks compress, now that the forks are pinched in tighter, that tight spot is going to come up here to where your forks are at. It's going to cause a bind. And or if they're spread out as it comes up, it'll cause a bind. And what that does is it wears out your fork seals and your bushings, and you end up getting fork seal leaks and stuff. And not only that, more stiction, more friction, and I have even seen the inner chambers get worn out because of the rod on the inner chamber because of that. So you have to get this aligned. In the old days, they used to tell you to keep this loose, get on the bike, grab the front brake, and compress the front end a few times, and this will magically find the sweet spot. That's what they used to tell us. The thing was, in the old days, you could get on top of a bike, suspension was soft, you can compress it almost all the way down. Sure, yeah. But nowadays, man, you get it compressed maybe that far. You can actually put this off like that, compress it, and you see it won't even move. The right way to do it is to feel it and find this center point. Now, sometimes what helps is if you take a flathead and you open it up a little bit right here. That'll give you a little more feel. And then you can find the center point. So you wiggle it, you'll feel it gets stiff on this side. See how it comes out back out on its own? And you pull it out, it's a little sticky, but if you pull it out far enough, it should. But yeah, it's getting a little sticky. But anyway, you get the idea. So what you do is you just feel it. You'll feel it springy. You find the center point. That's the center point right there. Now I'll take the flathead out, and you tighten it. Now you tighten it up. Now you tighten up all your pinch bolts, and now you can be assured that there will be no bind. You'll get long life out of your fork seals and everything like that. Let me tighten up this side. You can go tighten up the other side now. You like them fancy bolts? Some more titanium hardware I've collected throughout the years. It doesn't save much weight, but it's cool. Ah, there we go. Ah, it's all done. Boy, that was a long video, huh? Nice and smooth with a little bit of friction, set perfectly. Well, I guess that's it for this video. I'm going to be riding Orlando MX this weekend. They brought out some clay. It's a new layout. I think I'm going to take the YZ250 smoker out for that one this weekend. Hope you guys also get a good ride in this weekend. Shout out to all my subscribers. I appreciate every single one of you guys. And if you're not a subscriber, all you got to do, it's free. Just click that little subscribe button and you'll know when I have some new videos that pop up. If you don't mind also clicking like, that kind of gets it out there. And yeah, I appreciate it, and catch you guys next time.